Okay. Hey, how you doing tonight? Welcome to the channel. Tonight I'm going to be going over the season finale of Yellowstone season 4. So just a heads up, this is going to be kind of a long one. I'll let you know in advance because I want to go through this episode. It's like a 78-minute episode, and I want to go over my thoughts on the entire season. So, and also if I'm a little spacey or my voice gets a little crazy, I'm getting over some sort of bug or something, flu bug or whatever, but I'm feeling much better. I actually shot this video once before, on Sunday when I was first starting to feel sick, and I went back and watched it, and I was pretty spaced out. I was all over the place. So hopefully it'll be an improvement. So let's get into this episode. So the episode begins at the lodge with Rip. He's being awakened by the sound of Beth. She's packing her bags. He gets up, and she's kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say she's throwing a fit, but she's emotionally, angrily, like throwing all of her shit in her suitcases, and she's out of there. John told her she needed to leave, so, which I thought was a really big deal. When I saw this, I was thinking, okay, let's see what's going to happen. This is going to be the big, this is season finale material, Beth leaving the ranch. So Rip gets up and he talks to her. He has a good conversation with her. You know, she's not really wanting to listen to him or talk. She's doing her Beth thing where she's blocking him out. And, you know, he gets her to make eye contact, and he says essentially that if she leaves and this ranch, and she comes back in a couple of years and this ranch is still in the same, he's still there and it's still in the same state, or maybe it's gone or whatever. But he promised her, she promised him, and that she breaks her promise to him, it's over. He's not going to take her back. And it was good. I thought it was nice. You know, she responded. And so she goes over to John's bedroom. She wakes him up, and she's acting very mature. And she says she's sorry for what she did to Summer, and that the rules of engagement will be his rules going forward. And he says, no problem, I love you, done. So I thought it was a good scene, but I thought it was such an undoing of what we just saw. Like, if you watch these back to back, within about 5 minutes, you would have this big dramatic ending and then a resolution right then, right at the beginning of the episode. This show has done this more than once in this. I really haven't seen it happen so much that I can recall in seasons 1, 2, or 3. But damn, if they're doing it more now than ever, I thought it was stupid. Why even write it in there? Why make that such a dramatic ending to an episode just to fix it at the very beginning of the next? I think it's a writing. It's like a writing sin. Any show that does stuff like this, it gets a downvote for me. I can't stand it. So now we see Beth. She's walking through the barn. It's the next morning, and Carter's in there working. He's shoveling the cow dung or the horse dung, and he just offhand just says, "Morning, Mama," and she responds, and then she stops, and she kind of has a harsh few words for him. It's reality, but man, they treat this kid like. They treat him like he just doesn't have emotions, or like he shouldn't have any emotions. It's just weird. And I understand. I don't think she's wrong in what she said, but yeah, it wasn't even, she was being very harsh about how she is not his mother. She will never be anybody's mother, and he doesn't get a second chance on another mother. So it was a good scene. It was harsh, but it was very sad. Carter's reaction was pretty heart-wrenching. So let's see, where were we then? Oh, so then she walks out, and Walker's out getting ready to go to work, and she pulls him aside and talks to him, and she asks him about his time in prison, about conjugal visits, about how to smuggle a weapon in, how is she going to do all this, and kind of setting up that she's up to something. She's going to be doing something big. And he, Walker's Walker. He's always a cool cat. So he gives her the best advice that he can. And he tells her basically to dress sexy, take the eyes off of whatever weapon you want to smuggle. So, and he kind of looks down at her body, insinuating like, show off your assets and you'll be able to get a weapon in a lot easier, which makes logical sense. In movie land. I don't think that works in reality, but whatever. So then she walks off, and Rip, he sees them talking, so he rides it pretty quick. He's on horseback, and he asks Walker, what was it all about? And Walker, he comes clean and tells him, he thinks she's gonna go kill somebody, and so Rip tells him, don't say anything to anybody, and then he rides off to Beth real fast before she gets in her car, and he lets her know that if there's anything that she needs doing, like, any sort of dirt that needs to be done, he'll take care of it. Which is a very Rip thing to say. And, it was kind of setting it up for like this big farewell. It was almost like she was going on one final ride. It was what this whole thing began as. That's what I was thinking of. It goes a completely different place, but we'll get to that. So then she leaves. She says she loves him and everything, and they don't have a fight or anything, but she's not listening to him. She's heading out. So then the credits roll, and then we come back, and we're back to Casey. He's under a tree. He's having some visions. Really not worth talking about. I think this whole thing is a waste. All right, so now we're back to the bunkhouse, and we see the Sixes truck. It comes pulling up pulling a trailer, and it's Jimmy. He's bringing that $300,000 horse up for John to see at the Yellowstone. And we cut to the inside of the bunkhouse, and it's all the ranch hands. They're sitting around playing some poker, and Jimmy comes into the bunkhouse, and they kind of do this thing for dramatic effect where he comes in, talks to them for a couple of seconds, and then he's like, we're going to need 2 chairs instead of 1. And then he turns to the door, and then Emily walks in. So I don't know who really would introduce somebody like that. Like, did he tell her, like, wait, count to 5 and then come through the door? Just kind of silly. TV land. But Mia's there. Now, this I thought was odd. She doesn't work there anymore, and when she left the night of Lloyd and Walker's last fight, well, the last fight before the fight that Lloyd broke Walker's guitar and Walker got stabbed in the chest with a knife, that was when Mia left. She walked off, and we haven't seen her since. So I thought it was weird that all of a sudden she's here just for the scene. And we know why. I mean, it's all for the show, but I just thought it's inconsistencies that I just don't like. So he introduces Emily as his fiance, and Mia gets up and clocks him in the face, and then Emily steps in, punches her in the face. They have a pretty cool little fight. Emily, they get separated, and Jimmy picks up Mia and carries her out of the bunkhouse. And Laramie goes out with her and him too. And then Emily sits down and takes a swig of whiskey and, goes on about her. It was a funny scene. I thought it was cool. I thought it was a good scene for both of them. And so then we cut to Jimmy outside with Mia, and they're having a talk. And, I thought it was a really good scene. And I think they're both in the right, which makes it kind of a good scene, I think. She broke up with Jimmy, so he's not necessarily cheating on her. And he brought up some very good points in regards to, she didn't say, I'll wait for you, or do you want me to wait for you? And he didn't say, will you come with me? There was a lot of unspoken things that they both now are regretting. Like, even Jimmy is regretting not saying something, and Mia's rightfully saying, why didn't you fight for me? You didn't even fight for me a little bit. So, and then Mia says, forget everything. Just choose right now between her or me. And he chooses Emily. And, and Mia's upset, and I feel bad for Mia. It sucks. I think you've been there. I know I've been there in old Heartbreak Hotel, and it sucks. So during this back and forth, John he kind of walks up just as Mia and Laramie walk away, and he's been watching. So, John and Jimmy have a couple of kind of funny words. Then John came down. Well, why he was there, he says, I came down to see the horse. So they go into the barn and they have a pretty good conversation. I really liked it, where Jimmy is, letting him know that he's engaged and that, he made a promise. He broke his promise to John once. He's not going to do it again. So he's back. And he said he almost broke his promise for Emily to stay in Texas, but he's not going to do that. And he's going to stay there and work off whatever he owes him. And, John just says, you'll never be able to pay me back because it's too much money, but you don't owe me anything. And tells him Texas was good for him and says, you're free to go. You always have a home here at the Yellowstone. So it was good. I liked it. This is Jimmy completing his arc. And this is good writing. This is good stuff. I like it. I mean, I still have some complaints about this season in regards to Jimmy's arc, but this was at least, we can see this arc completing. I wish the show would do more shit like this. So now we're back to Casey. He's having more visions. This time he sees his brother. He sees Avery. More stuff. It's just, more stuff. Anyways. So next day we see Jimmy and Rip and the rest of the cowboys, and they're treating some cattle for pneumonia. And it was kind of cool because they need to rope these cattle to administer the medication. And Jimmy steps in. Boom. He starts roping up like it's nothing. Everyone's impressed. Once again, Jimmy showing his arc completing. He knows what he's doing. And he has learned a lot on the, excuse me, this is my phone. I want to flip it over. He has learned a lot from the Sixes Ranch, and I wish we would have seen more of it, but whatever. And he shows his knowledge of like the cattle. Just he says something that, Rip agrees with, and Rip never ever agreed with anything he ever said. All he ever told him was to shut the fuck up. That was pretty much his only words to him. So, all right. So now we cut to Beth. She's sitting at her office at Market Equities. She's looking through the Bureau of Prisons website, and Jackie comes storming in. She slams a paper on her desk and basically tells her that she knows what happened with the protest and the whole sabotage, which was fucking obvious. Okay. So she gives her a bunch of compliments. Jackie does. Just, you're so awesome. You're so badass. No one expects you. She basically says that no one in Montana fights and they don't expect her. And then she's the only fighter there, which this is the 4th season that the Duttons have been fighting off these corporations that are coming in from the big cities. So just more, I guess, is more reasons to show how Beth's great. And she's she's smug. As usual. Nothing phases her. She doesn't really care. And then Jackie does tell her, she threatens her and says that she's going to pour concrete all over Montana and she's going to ruin the ranch and everything. She's going to destroy her, and she's going to send her to jail. The way things are done with Beth's character, I just don't see any consequences happening to her. So do I think that she'll end up in jail at some point? I doubt it. I mean, she can survive a bomb blast. I'm pretty sure she can survive not going to prison. So it sucks, because I want these conversations and I want these things to have weight, but they just don't. When it comes to Beth, they have no weight because she has no obstacles. So now we see John. He's visiting the judge. His name is Mitch. He's talking to him about Summer's case, and he's asking him for the favor. And they actually have a pretty good dialogue back and forth. And Mitch doesn't sound like he's gonna help him out. He doesn't. He's pretty. He is. Convinced. He is set on giving her a sentence for prison. Like, she's going to prison. It's just a matter of how much time, is what he says. So then we see Terrell Higgins. He's being walked from, I guess, his cell to one of the conjugal visit cells that they have at the prison. And he goes in, and Beth's in there. They have somewhat of a conversation. It's Beth just asking him well, she tells him who she is, and then he mentions another guy. He says the other guy or the suit or whatever, and she says, "Is this him?" And she pulls her phone out and she shows a picture of Jamie, and he says, "Yeah, that's him." He IDs him. Then Beth puts the phone away, puts her jacket on, and she gives this lame ass "your life is a waste" speech. It was so fucking stupid. This scene was very cringe for me. So first things first, what was her plan? So she asked Walker about smuggling a weapon into prison. Was that for self-defense, or was she going in there with the intent of killing this man? I was thinking the latter. I thought she was going in to kill Terrell Higgins because she just found out who he was just now, which is a whole other problem that I have with this storyline. But just focused on her, she now knows who tried to kill her and her father and her brother. So was she going in there just to link Jamie to this? Because she had the phone, the picture ready to go. I don't understand what this whole thing was. What was her result? Like, what did she want to have? And because all she does is she just talks to him, and then after he says that he spoke to Jamie, she doesn't ask him any questions about why. She doesn't ask him anything. All she wants to know is, did he speak to Jamie? That's it. And then she lectures the guy and then leaves, walks out the door. That's the end of the scene. It was a useless scene. And so then the other thing was, so if he didn't ID Jamie, what was her plan? Because the story was sort of setting up that this is her last ride. Like, she's doing her final mission, essentially. And I wish they would have, I wish they would have made it a little more clear if that's what her plan was. If she was going in there to kill the man, or if she was going there to get information. Because to me, it looked like she went in there just to get information. So I didn't like it. This whole scene, and on top of that too, I mean, I've never served time. I've been tossed in a drunk tank once, but I've never actually served an actual sentence. And I'm thankful for that. I know people, I have family members who have served prison, like serious prison time. So I have some secondhand, I have their firsthand knowledge. So it's secondhand for me. Yeah, you don't go around instigating lifers. You just don't do that. And she spoke to this guy like he was just a piece of shit, which he is, but I mean, like he was some weakling, and he just stood there and he was like, his lip was quivering, like he was all upset. Like, her 60-second speech was turning his life around. Like, everything had just, her talking to him just aligned the stars for him. And now he can see clearly. It was so lame. It wasn't a powerful speech. It was just another "your life is a waste" speech. And I thought it was so stupid. It was so fucking cringe. So I don't know. I don't know what the hell they were trying to do there, outside of trying to make Beth look cool again. So back to the Yellowstone, we see the cowboys. They're roping, I don't know what you call it. But they're roping as like teams. So like two of the riders ride out and they rope the cattle from the hindquarters and around the head or around the neck. And it was kind of a funny, cool scene. It's nice to see everybody just sort of getting along, having a good time. Lloyd's there, Rip's there, Jimmy's now there, Walker's there, Laramie's there, Emily's there. So they're all having fun, drinking some beers. Jimmy shows off his roping skills, and then so it kind of wraps up. And Jimmy and Lloyd step off to the side, and Jimmy and him have a pretty good conversation. I liked it. Jimmy, he kind of explained something that I thought added context to him going to the Sixes Ranch. I always thought it was, and I still don't think it was justified necessarily, because it just seemed weird, like he was going down there just to do the same thing. However, Jimmy made a very good point, which I liked, that when he was in Texas, he liked it better, and there he doesn't have to worry about fighting just to do his job, because his neighbor's doing the same job and his neighbors are doing the same job. And up here in Montana, you have to fight just to be a cowboy. And I thought that was pretty cool. I actually really liked that. So I think it was a good, necessary piece of information that added context to how the Sixes really is different than Montana. So I liked it. But Jimmy he's leaving the Yellowstone. He's going to go down and work on the 4-6's ranch for good. That's where he wants to go. And I thought Lloyd's reaction was really touching. This is the Lloyd that I like. Lloyd's a good guy. He always has been. He's always been a mentor for Jimmy and a guide. And so I've always thought that his and Jimmy's relationship was strong, and it was a strong part of the show. And seeing Lloyd be emotional and, not being stupid, I thought it was really good. I liked it. So, cut to Beth. She is coming home with a kidnapped priest to have a shotgun wedding with Rip. Again, it's and the way she even talks about it to John when she shows up, because she just kind of storms in. Everyone's worried where she's at. Rip and John are discussing, where is she? We haven't heard from her. And she comes storming in like normal, and she's like, let's get married. And she tells John that she has something that she needs to do, that I think she says it in like, I have something that I have to do tomorrow, that I want to be a married woman when I do it. So again, they're continuing this sort of last ride, Beth's last ride, is what they're kind of making it seem like. She's going around doing something, and she wants to be married. Okay. I'm still following. So far, you failed, show, but let's see where you go with this. And the scene was really long. I thought it was nice. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was a bad scene. It was touching that Rip and her finally got married. I think it's a good match. I think they work really well together. The characters, they play off each other really well. It had its humor. It had its, emotional stuff. So I was all good with it. It was just really long. Man, it was long. So then we go back to Casey. He's having more visions. We spend way too much time with this. I think this was one of the longer ones where it was like 5 minutes of him just having a vision. And it's not even like a vision where we are being informed of what he is struggling with. It's just these sort of like fragments of shit that's happening. And I don't even know why he's there. I have no idea why this is happening. Again, I think they're trying to say it's PTSD, but that card has never been played. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on. So now we cut to, it's Summer's sentencing hearing. John is there. He's he's sitting behind her in the courtroom, and he's there to help her, give her, some support. So he tells her, that they're going to enter in a plea agreement, her attorney and the state's attorney, and that he tells her you're going to switch your plea to guilty. So she does, and the judge gives her a pretty fucking honest and truthful summary of her life as a criminal. So I mean, she has, I can't remember if it was in the previous episode or if it's in this one. I don't remember what it was, but she has like 30 counts. Like she's on the books for like 30 different counts of laws that she's broken. So this is not like her first time. She is not just some person has a bunch of unpaid parking tickets. She's been in trouble. So, and I thought the judge gave her a really honest and good talking to, and put some shit in perspective, because you may disagree with what he said. You may disagree with anything about it. I personally, I didn't. I liked what he said. And then he fucking threw the book at her. He gave her like 35 plus years altogether. I thought that shit was pretty harsh. I mean, I didn't think that I like the statement. I thought it was good, and I was like, okay, but he's going to kind of come down half-hearted on her. He's not going to give her the full whammy, but he did. And I actually felt bad for Summer. I really did. The look on her face was like, it was genuine shock, which is just like most people who think they're getting away with something. You see people in court. I've seen it. I'm sure you've seen it on some sort of show or like live, like, like a real reaction where people, people think they got it all figured out until a judge bangs that gavel, and then the truth sets in. She played it up really well. Her reaction was pretty shocking. So she turns around, gives John, gives him a hug, and she gets the cuffs put on her, and she gets taken away. So the next scene, John comes storming into Mitch's chambers, the judge's chambers, and just starts kind of cussing him out, telling him he's being fucking cruel and how could you do this? And I thought it was okay that John did this, but it's all of a sudden, it's like he's booty blind. Like, that's the only reason this is happening, is that he had sex with her. That's it. Because they knew each other for one day. Like, that's all the show has shown us. He met her, he bailed her out. He met her for like 2 minutes, then he bailed her out, and then he took her home. They had sex. She got up the next morning, and they left. That was it. One night stand. And all of a sudden, he is like in love with her or something. They didn't do enough to build that up. Like I said, I like Summer's character, but John and her's relationship doesn't seem that strong. That it doesn't seem that molded into something that's worth fighting for from John's perspective. But so anyways, he gives a big, you're being cruel speech to the judge. And I thought the judge's responses were fucking accurate. He was being, I think the sentence was way overdone for sure. But I think his logic was sound, and I didn't see anything wrong with it. The thing that pissed me off about this, which just really bugs shit out of me, is that the judge folds. And he says to have them file the appeal on Friday so it doesn't look like he changed his mind too fast. And now she's going to serve basically 8 months. Just undo what you just did, show. Good job, Yellowstone. That scene before where she got sentenced and I felt bad for her, and I was legitimately like shocked, like I'm audibly like gasping when I saw it. I was like, damn, I can't believe it. Boom. Nope, just undo it. No big deal. Like it never happened. Just like the beginning, at the end of the last episode to this episode with Beth getting kicked out, show just undoes it. Does something, with weight, moves something, moves a piece on the board in a very substantial way, and then just moves it right back. It's just fucking stupid. I did not like it. But John and Mitch's discussion, I thought was a good discussion. I liked it. But the outcome was fucking bullshit. So next we see Jamie. He's coming into his office, and his assistant won't tell him who's in his office, which it's more for dramatic effect. It's like the whole Jimmy not having Emily walk in with him so that we can dramatically see her walk in. This was just the same shit, which is so stupid. His assistant's like, all she has to do is say, it's your sister. But she doesn't. He's like, oh, I don't have any appointments. She's like, oh, it's not an appointment. It's a visitor. And he's like, yeah, but who? And she's like, it's a visitor. It's like, oh my God, just fucking say it. We know it's Beth. It's so stupid. So Beth's there, and he jumps like a scared cat all the time. Like he just flinches when he sees her. He is literally like a whipped dog. And it's so off-putting. His character is so off-putting. And she gives him blah, 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 lots of speech, lots of Beth, I'm a badass, I'm gonna put you in your place conversation. And then, she wants to log into his computer, and he stops her. And then she pulls, I don't remember seeing it, but I think she pulled the gun and pops him in the face with it. And it's like, okay, you hit somebody with the butt of a gun, that shit's gonna hurt. But it's just her smacking him around some more. It was her scratching post, got to get scratched. And she logs into his computer, and she makes fun of his password. Got to do that too. Got to make sure we just, emasculate this guy as much as possible. And then she points out or brings up the meeting that he had with Terrell Higgins. So so what? And the shit that was interesting was like, he doesn't deny it. He says, yes, I met, and I met to talk about if this guy really tried to kill my father, and talking about John. And she just, I mean, it's like none of that information matters to her. She took a fucking criminal, a lifer in prison, a person who greenlit a hit on her own life. She takes his word over Jamie's without question. She didn't ask the guy any other questions. Literally, she just shows him a picture and says, "You talk to this guy? Cool, I'm good. I've got it all figured out." It's so flimsy. This whole plot line, this whole story was so fucking flimsy and stupid. So then she tells him that, well, he reveals that, he says, and again, he's actually being forthcoming. He says, I wanted to see if my father was involved with this, his real father, his biological father, Garrett. She says, did you know that he was? And he says, not until then. So he's being honest. And the funny thing is like what he's saying isn't bad. Like like from just context of, what's right and what's wrong, just the facts on the table. He hasn't done anything wrong here. And she's like, did you kill him? Why didn't you kill him right then and there? And it was just that was the whole thing. That was her whole plan, was to, she now caught him in a truth because he didn't lie. So she didn't catch him in a lie. And then she basically throws out all these options. And she says that, he has three options. I'm either going to go home, tell my dad, and he's going to have you thrown in jail and blah, 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 and you're a big wussy and you're going to kill yourself. Or I'm going to go home and I'm going to tell Rip that, and this was the shit that really bothered me. She says, I'll tell Rip that you cut out his baby and all of my organs so that I could never give him a family. Really? Man, they are really driving that one home. And at this point, I couldn't care fucking less about that whole, because I've already talked about it. I think that whole plot line is stupid. I don't like it. I just think it's stupid. She's taking no responsibility for that. She got pregnant as a child. She went to another child and asked him to help her get an abortion. She wanted an abortion. She's leaving that completely out. Now it's just all Jamie's fault. And then on top of that, we're supposed to believe that the doctor that gave the abortion decided to do a hysterectomy, and that's that. There's no options out of that. It's just, come on, show writers, you could do better than this. Or maybe you can't. Maybe this is best as you can do. But if this is your best, it sucks. Like this is, I just think that whole story is stupid. And because that part of the story is dumb, I don't feel bad. I can't get invested in that. If they had done it a different way and actually made Jamie it actually his fault and like all his fault, but she's not a victim here. She made some mistakes. He made some mistakes, and they're both children. They're both little children. They're like 16, 15, 17, right around that. They don't know that age. Jesus, they don't know anything. So she starts giving him this is what you're going to do. These are your options. And then he gets up and, like, in the praying position, gets on his knees and begs. And I mean, like, please, 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 please. And it's uncomfortable to watch this guy. I wouldn't even call him a guy. Like, he's just, I don't know what he is, man. But she also says there's a third option that you can take. And then boom, cuts to black. Move on to the next scene. So once again, the show does the thing where they won't tell us, you and me, what's going to happen. Like, we don't know. Like, I knew exactly what was going to happen. I'm sure you probably figured it out too. Okay. So where was I? Where was I? Oh, and that's the other thing too. Jesus, this guy, I keep forgetting this. Is he not the attorney general or the district attorney? I mean, Jamie has power. He is in a very high office in the state. And this is how he acts. He acts like this. Yeah. they've written him into a very narrow corner. So, all right, back to Casey and his visions. He has some more visions, and then it ends. Then he comes home and tells Monica that when she asks him what did he see, he says, "I saw the end of us." Wow, that's edgy. What does that mean? Edge of what? Edge of mankind? The end of Earth? What is it? The end of him and Monica, Monica and Tate? And that was really it. That's the end. We don't see Casey again. That's the end of the story for the season. What a dud. That's a shitty way to end the season for me. Okay, back to the Yellowstone. Jimmy is saying goodbye. Good scene. I really like this one. It was nice because it really kind of puts the ending on Jimmy's story. He's now leaving. He's done with the Yellowstone. He's going down to Texas. And they all had the nice little back and forths, like as he goes down the line, everything teeter, everyone gets to say something. And then Lloyd just tips his hat. He's crying. He walks off. It was a good scene. It was very, very emotional for him. And then Rip has some good words for him. I mean, Rip's treating Jimmy like an equal, which he doesn't do anybody. So I thought it was really cool. I mean, it really it completed Jimmy's arc. And I thought it was a good arc. It took 4 seasons to do it, and I think they drug their feet on some of the shit, but it was good. And then they go to leave. Emily and Jimmy are driving out, and Mia is sitting on the back of her truck at the end of the drive. And that was just heart-wrenching. Mia's reaction, she's crying. You can tell she's hurting. And I think she's a great actress. I thought she didn't have a bunch to do in this season. She had some, but she takes care of her business when she's on screen. I really like her as an actress. So I feel bad for her. I felt bad for Mia. She's not wrong. She is wrong and right, and Jimmy is wrong and right. And she's just, obviously the one with the broken heart. And Jimmy is, he's kind of, Emily and him have a couple of words about it. She calls him out and she says, if you're still having second thoughts, now's the time. And he's like, nope, just a little bit of regrets, but good. I liked it. So now we cut to Jamie coming home to his ranch, and he sees Garrett sitting down by the creek. He's got like his suitcase or his rucksack or whatever, and he's leaned up against it. He's sitting down in the grass, and he asks him, where you going? And he's obviously leaving. And Garrett says, he's going to travel a little bit, just kind of roam around. And I thought that Garrett gave Jamie really good advice, and I really liked what he had to say because it's so true. He first starts off by saying that don't let the Duttons use your fear against you. And if you would just stop being afraid and scared, you would have everything that you want. And he's right. I mean, he really is. Jamie is like a shadow of a person. He's not. They have written him into such a little tiny crevice that's not even. I don't even feel bad for him. I don't have anything but just sort of annoyance with him. He's useless. He does nothing. And I thought that Garrett's wisdom, even though and again, I don't think Garrett's a good person or anything like that, but Garrett, I think, genuinely loves Jamie. I don't think that they were sort of positioning this as though he was using Jamie. And Beth, that was part of her little speech in Jamie's office, was that, when he gets in, when she tells John, and John's going to, put Jamie on blast with the law, and he's going to lose his job and go to jail. She's like telling him that Garrett will turn on him and sell him out. I don't think so. I don't believe that. Garrett has genuinely tried to help Jamie stand on his own 2 feet and be a man. Like that's all I've seen so far. So I don't have that, and the show didn't give me any reason to think otherwise, because it's not what they showed me. So he has some more words of wisdom that I thought was really good. And then Garrett tells him that he loves him, and Jamie says, "I love you too." And then camera pulls back. Jamie pulls out a gun, shoots Garrett in the head, kills him. I thought it was a waste. Waste of a good character. I thought Garrett was a good character. And they really didn't utilize his character, and the actor who played him, I think, is a good actor too. I just thought it was kind of a waste of a character. And Jamie, once again, Jamie does something that is not his own decision. He's always acting on someone else's behalf. It's so annoying. So next we see Jamie. He's on the Wyoming border. He's at the old kill cliff where the Yellowstone takes all their bodies and dumps them. And he's pulling Garrett's body out of his car and dragging it over to the cliff. And then we hear Beth. She says, "Stop, turn around." And he turns around. And I'm not kidding you. It was like, he just stops dead in his tracks when he hears her voice. And all he does is turn around and look over his shoulder, poses perfectly so she can snap a photo with her iPhone, and then she tells him that she owns his ass now. And then she walks off and says, "You should have taken the first or second option." This was so fucking dumb. Oh my God, I hated the scene in every way. Okay, first of all, she left his office and it was daytime. Okay. So obviously some hours have passed. So did she just drive from his office? She just drive right to the Wyoming cliff and hang out? Like, was she just chilling like in the dark, just kind of waiting, playing Candy Crush on her phone, killing a few hours until she hopefully thinks that Jamie will show up? What if he didn't show up that night? What if he didn't do it that night? What if he burned his body? Okay. What if he burned Garrett's body and then buried the ashes, on his 1,000-acre ranch? He has tons of space. It was just so stupid of why it was just so convenienced, and like everything was just laid out perfectly so that it was supposed to look cool for Beth to finally get Jamie in her crosshairs and like get him on the hook. Ugh, so stupid. And furthermore, Jamie, once again, does nothing. He didn't even say anything. He just sat there, posed for the picture, and then turned around and watched her leave. Really? Really? He couldn't grab her phone? He couldn't throw her phone over the cliff? Boom, that solves that problem. How about throw her off the cliff? Do something other than just standing there taking it. He just stands around and gets beat up all the time. Man, his character, just so useless. It's just so stupid. It's just the fact that I can't get over the fact that how long was she waiting there? I mean, they didn't even show her follow him. Nothing. And furthermore, he's like dragging towards the cliff. She comes walking from the cliff. Was she like hanging off the edge in her stilettos and trench coat? So stupid. So next day we see Beth. He's sitting outside and she comes up and talks to him, and John is, he believes that Jamie is, obviously she did something to Jamie and he's concerned. He's, saying, "Do I still have my son? Is he dead?" She says, "No, but you own his ass now." I just thought that it was this was kind of the end. So she says she didn't kill him, and she's like, I forgot what she says, something along the lines of like, "I did what I said I would do, get everyone, anyone in your way out of your way," whatever, something like that. And then she gets up and walks off, and she's like, "I'm going to bed." Like a hard day's work is done. This was the end of her quest, and I thought it was such a stupid ass quest. And I thought the show really tried to make it seem like it was so impactful and she was going on one last ride. Everything just worked out for her. Everything did. So stupid. And it was like the show tried to make it seem like she was doing a suicide mission. She's getting married. She's saying goodbye. She asked Walker about prison. It's just like, okay, something big's about to happen. Nope, nothing. So she blackmails her brother, or her non-brother. Oh, wow. And not only that, but what was her plan really? If her plan was to kill him or to kill Terrell, it was never even implied that she was going to do it, or that it was there. I mean, they did a really shitty job, of even having her attempt to kill and then come to her senses or realize there's a better way, or a way that she won't spend the rest of her life in prison. Nope. Everything just worked out perfect. So anyways, she goes off. John's happy that his son's not dead. And Then Carter comes up. He's got 2 horses. He's leading them. And he asks John if he wants to go for a ride. John says no, not today or whatever. And then, Carter does what he does. He brings that sort of naivete to the fold, where he's just and he says what John needs to hear, which is that's what's great about riding horses. You can just do it for fun. And that gets John to perk up. He gets on the horse. They take off running, or I'm sorry, they take off riding. Carter says he wants to race him, and then boom, they cruise out of there, and that's the end. Roll credits. So that was the end of the episode. Very long episode, like I said, it was like 78 minutes. Okay, so let me get a drink of water on this one. So overall, I thought the season was mediocre. I want to talk about some bullet points I have here, just sort of about the season in general. So right out of the gate, I'm sorry. When the Duttons almost got killed or wiped out, this was a strong opening, and it was very impactful for me as a viewer. And then it just undid it in that first episode. Within 20 minutes, John's okay. He survived. Beth's totally okay, and she survived. Casey's okay, even though he got shot. He's okay. He survived. This was a lingering stench for me this whole season. This whole season was predicated on the fact that these 3 should at least one of them should be dead, and one of them should be, if living, should be maimed. Beth should be not walking around showing off some cleave, wearing skimpy outfits, and just like nothing happened. She has some scars. Her scars are superficial, and not only that, it didn't even make sense. She was facing the bomb when it went off, and yet the whole front of her is perfect, and her hair is perfect, and there's some scarring on her back, and she's got the cool Hollywood scar on her face. John being shot and left on the side of the road. I'm sorry, old guy like that. Give me a break. Casey was the only one that I thought was believable because he's been shot before. He's younger, and he had a vest on. And where he was shot, it looked like it was kind of more off to the side and not necessarily straight through an organ. Regardless, the show the writers decided to do these big things, and they did it a lot in this episode and last episode, where they did these big moves and they just undid them. They're afraid to do anything and commit to anything. It's like, you guys realize the show doesn't go on forever, right? All these shows have a shelf life, so you might as well get it while the getting's good. And I feel like they're just playing it way too safe. And furthermore, with them 3, none of them had any sort of setbacks from their injuries. None. John was, sore a little bit. He's up and riding. Casey, he's off like nothing happened, cruising around in his truck doing livestock shit. Beth's cruising around doing her regular smug acting shit. Nothing happened, and that really bothered me. That really set a bad tone for me. And then with Casey, so they kill off the militia, and that was like the militia montage where they're all getting wiped out, and we see where like Rip and Lloyd and Casey, the sheriff, livestock agents, they're wiping out these guys, the militia, but we didn't know anything about the militia. They were like a no-named organization, so there was no face, there was no beef, so it really didn't matter. So them killing off the militia, to me, was just like, okay, it was a cool little montage scene, but it had nothing to do with the whole. It didn't have a really big impact, and it happened kind of quick. I think it was like episode 2. So again, they moved away from the beginning of the season and the end of last season like that. The Terrell Higgins story was a lot of nothing. It really was. So you got to remember this. The only reason that they found out about this guy was because some guy was in Rainwater's casino running his mouth at the card table. Really? Like, that's just so fortuitous that this guy just happens to be running his mouth in a casino about some shit that he did, about setting up and organizing the militia with Terrell Higgins. I don't know. It was just luck. And then They spent a few too many episodes just passing Terrell Higgins' photo around with his photo in it, and that's it. There's just okay, and there was a lot of just sort of middling around, and then when we finally meet him, and we discover that he knows Garrett, that meeting between Jamie and Terrell was just sort of it was a bust. Nothing. That was the only thing that was happening, and that little piece, because we kept seeing this guy's photo, so it was like, okay, this guy's going to be an actual character. He wasn't even a character. He was just a side character, and he was a big focal point for all of the major players in this on this show, and he just came and went. That guy was it was nothing. So it was just like a big nothing burger. The Garrett thing was, I mean, that was an obvious thing. I'm sure you figured it out too. I mean, it was obvious that Garrett was the guy who was involved. So then what was it? Where was I at? I'm sorry, I lost my place. Oh yeah. So then to kind of finish out the Terrell Higgins and the Dutton family, the big hit was Beth. It sort of got directed as though it was Jamie's fault, even though the only reason she thinks that is because John and Casey never told her. John and her talk all the time. And that's another thing too. And I'm curious about this. Casey and Beth didn't share the screen one time this season, I don't think. And they don't share the screen that often in general. They're not enemies. They don't dislike each other, but they only refer to each other in like to another person. Like when John's talking about Beth to Casey, he'll talk about her like she exists, but they never see each other. They never even talk. We saw Casey and Jamie on screen together one time. And I feel like they keep Casey away from Beth because he would just simply inform her of the information and provide his opinion to her face. But I mean, because that's the only reason Beth would act the way she acted. But they went out of their way to make it seem like Beth was making this big statement, this big move, this big for the ranch move where she's going on this suicide mission. But it was all based on bullshit because all she had to do was ask John, or John just had to tell her, yeah, we sent Jamie to talk to him. That was that. Then that just negates everything. And furthermore, she was so hell-bent on believing that it was Jamie. Wouldn't that information be a little bit pertinent? Because John believes that Jamie had nothing to do with this. Casey believes that Jamie had nothing to do with it, and he didn't. He didn't have anything to do with this. Why they kept Beth away from these facts just so she could have her little last ride, which was lame. So it just the whole story, that whole Terrell Higgins and the murder plot, it just fell flat on its face. I felt like they really wanted to do something like mysterious and sort of thriller, and they just didn't have the chops to finish it. It's like they started out with this really cool concept that I was invested in, and then as that went on, I'm like, man, this is shit, just crappy ass writing. Okay, so the Jamie, Garrett, and Christina alliance. Just, I mentioned this before. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. When was Jamie going to run for governor? This was supposed to be a thing, and they just sat around talking about it on Jamie's ranch. And I don't know if I said this in my last review. I may have, but I really believe this. I felt like they shot all of their scenes where they discuss Jamie's bid for the governor and what they're going to do to beat John and respond to John's moves. I felt like they shot them all in like one day for filming, because that's all it is. Everything that happens between these people happens on the ranch of Jamie's ranch. The only time outside of that, either Garrett's off on his own, Jamie's off on his own, Christina just only shows up on the ranch. It was so weak, because I never felt like Jamie was running for governor. Like, show a race, show him announce that he's going to run for governor, have this political turmoil be public. Why does it just, all the stuff that they discussed, it was like they were talking about it like there was some story that was about to burst, or like they had to, on their next campaign trail or whatever, their next, shaking hands and kissing babies meeting, like in front of all these cameras, that they had to worry about these things, but they never did. They never had to do anything. They just sat around and talked about it. So I thought it was a waste. I really did. I thought I said this before. I think Garrett was a good addition to the show, and it sucks that they killed him off. That was fucking waste. They just totally wasted. He's a good actor, and I thought he at least he had a scene with John, and their scene was pretty good. We learned some information. We got some backstory, which is always nice, and adds context to why Garrett doesn't like John so much and why John doesn't like Garrett. They would have been a really good fight. That would have been so good if Garrett could have turned Jamie completely against the Duttons, made Jamie the villain, complete his training as a Sith Lord, and just go after John. And even, I mean, and that's fine if he's wrong. He's a villain. That'd be a good villain. But it never happened. I mean, Garrett was there to pass on a little bit of information, give him a little bit of wisdom, be with him to where he bought a new big ranch, and that was it. So I thought it was a terrible waste. And furthermore, Jamie, I've talked about this ad nauseum. They have done a terrible job establishing him as an enemy, as a friend, as a brother, as anything. He really is a useless, vapid character that just has no content to his character whatsoever. None. Everything he does is based on somebody else's wants, needs, or motives. He doesn't seem to have his own anything. Everything he does since season 2, essentially, he's just sort of flapping in the wind, and whatever way the wind is blowing is what his character does. And he's the attorney general or the D. I always forget what position he holds, but he does have a brain. He has established himself as a character who can think for himself. I mean, sure, he's an idiot. He makes mistakes. And I think that his ambitions have always, his ambitions for power have always been sort of his flaw that I thought would lead him down to a villainous, road. It never did. It hasn't yet. And they're just, to me, at this point, he would have to do something completely crazy, drastic to become a full-fledged villainous character. And if he did, if next season, if there is a next season, if it were to come out where he's this sort of big badass villain or this mustache twirling villain, it would seem completely out of character because he is a walking wet rag. All he does is cry. All he does is whimper and wince, and he's nothing. He's not formidable. He's not dangerous. He does nothing on his own. He's more of a liability than anything. I think he has no agency, none, and you can't do anything with that. And furthermore, it makes Beth. I think that makes Beth even worse of a character than I think she already is, because she spends all of her time pushing this guy around. Well, cool story, bro. You're pushing around a weakling. So you're preying on the weak? Wow, you're so strong. I thought that was a bad thing. I thought that was what villains did. I thought that's what evil people did, was they preyed on the weak. And that's what she does. He's a total weakling, and all she does is manipulate him and bat him around like a cat playing with a ball of yarn. So I think that they've wasted this guy's character. I wish they would just kill him off. Just get rid of him. Just kill him off. Get rid of him. I actually thought Beth was going to kill him. I was like, cool, mercy kill. End it. End this clown, because he's pointless. He's useless for the show. He's not needed for anything. So let's just move on. But no, it didn't. They got to keep him around. So she has someone to beat up on for a while, I guess. And furthermore, they've done a terrible job of establishing Jamie and John's feud. There is reasons for them to not like each other, and for them to, I understand, it's not like it's non-existent. However, this whole season, nothing really happened outside of the fact that Jamie didn't visit his father. But then when he explained it all to Casey as to why he didn't, legally he couldn't, it made sense. It all made sense. But it's like they couldn't have Casey tell John those exact words, and then John talk to Jamie, and then Jamie say, listen, this is why. No, they couldn't have that happen. And then, Beth, she can get read into the conversation later on, and everything would be making more sense. But they choose not to allow this information to pass between characters so they can add suspense and tension, and it doesn't work. It's it's lame. It's weak writing. So the the market equities storyline had no real impact. Another piece of the story of this season that I thought was just a waste. So Jackie gets introduced as the big corporate baddie. Good enough. I'm cool with that. She says fuck way too much for her character. Like, it looks completely weird. Like, it's like your grandmother, you know, just going around saying fuck 100 times. Like, grandma, knock it off. But her character, I thought, when she was introduced, I thought what she was going to do sounded interesting. She wanted to align with Rainwater, and she wanted to feed their greed. I was all cool with it. She was going to try this whole new approach. Never happened. None of it grew into any sort of conflict. None. Or into an alliance. What was the other thing? Oh, the airport. What happened with the airport? We saw some remains getting dug up, and then we saw a little bit of piles of dirt and some heavy equipment, but that's it. We saw these big plans for this big community that's going to be built. Nothing happened. No, it's like they really made that a thing for market equities to come in and, you know, start bulldozing the land. It just never really happened. Yeah, I thought their introduction into this season as the new corporate antagonist, I thought it was stupid. I really did. And then when Beth went to work for them, the whole thing that she did with the sabotage, it was, first of all, she only worked for the company for a very short amount of time. She didn't do shit. We never saw her working for the company outside of the one time where she does the sabotaging with the protesters and getting Summer in trouble. That's it. That's the only thing she really did. Not enough. Sorry. Not enough, show. Try harder. So Casey, he didn't really have much of an arc. Like I said before, he took out the militia. He dealt with Monica and Tate, which wasn't much to that. That was kind of one and done. He did some livestock commissioner shit, and then he finished the season crying in the middle of nowhere, trying to get visions for something that I don't understand why. I don't know what he was there for. I still do not understand. I have missed things before in the show. I have missed things from the past, from previous seasons, and I've brought them into these reviews, and I apologize for that. But they haven't done shit. They have not established anything to warrant what we're going through with this last 2 episodes. His character, they just sort of, his arc just fizzled out completely. I still like his character. I still like him as an actor. I think he's a good part of the show, but yeah, his story this season was pretty lackluster. Started off strong like the rest, boom, just died off. Beth's another one. She didn't have an arc at all. She just walks through every single situation. She has no problem with anything. Absolutely. Whenever any obstacle that's presented to her, she just smirks, insults, and cusses her way through it. And she always gets away with it. Always. Always. Even with her father. She can throw fucking cups of hot coffee at him. She can threaten his guests with knives. She can do whatever the hell she wants. And he lets her. And it's just like this really uncomfortable pattern of behavior that they've written for her. She does the same thing every time. She's very predictable, and predictability is boring. Writers need to understand that. You got to keep viewers and readers on their toes. They have to be, I don't want to say subvert expectations, because I know where that shit goes, but you have to keep us surprised. And this season, they didn't surprise me really at all. None of it. That's one thing this season, if I were to say, is the worst. There was no surprises. There was no really suspense. Because from the beginning, even especially with her, they all have plot armor. She has fucking 2-inch thick plot armor. I never felt like she was in peril ever. I mean, we saw it right up till the end. She goes and mouths off to a fucking a lifer in prison, a person who has no problem killing. Nope, no big deal. He didn't even yell at her. He didn't cuss her. He just stood there like a stick in the mud, just staring at her with his lip quivering like he was gonna cry. Really? That's how that would go? Okay, all right. Obviously, they've never seen any sort of real prison like documentaries and how shit goes down inside. Because, like I said, I know this much, very little, and I'm pretty sure this shit wouldn't have flown. But that's just my opinion. I'm not saying I'm not the end all be all. I don't know it all, but that whole the whole Terrell Higgins conversation I thought was stupid. She always has the last word. She never suffers for any of her consequences. Everything she does is just it goes her way. And furthermore, and I've said this before too, she acts immature. I think her behavior is very childish, and it's very unappealing and unattractive. I personally, this is just me. This is just, this normie talking about how I see people. When I see someone acting like an immature person, like this character, over and over, constantly resorting to childish fit throwing and sort of stomping your feet and screaming, it's a turn as a grown ass woman, and she does not act like it. She just doesn't. Cussing people out and insulting people and breaking shit and throwing fits and hurting people doesn't make you tough, and it doesn't make you grown. It makes you dangerous and immature. So I guess the dangerous thing is what they're going for, but I don't know. She just does nothing for me. And the times when she's acting like a normal human being, her interactions with Rip, when Rip and Carter are sitting down and being like normal, I actually like her. She does have there's a few slivers of like, just a little bit more of that. They won't do it. They just keep writing her into every situation. She just works her way right through it without any sort of consequence whatsoever. And it just makes her boring. I mean, they're trying to make her this badass cowgirl, but it's just rinse and repeat. She never does anything new, so there's nothing new to expect. John's arc didn't really move. He survived the gunshots, which I thought were unbelievable. That's just me. And I think it would have meant a lot more for me personally had we saw him go through his recovery, but we didn't. We saw him get shot at the end of last season. We pick up right at the beginning of this season. We fast forward the clock, and now he's waking up with the beard, getting out of bed. Back home, he's riding horses. Nothing happened to the guy. Nothing. So once again, just undoing anything impactful as quickly as possible to move along. And just, yeah, and even his run for governor, I thought, well, okay, he has one press conference, and that's that. We're moving along. Nothing happened outside of that. So furthermore, I think there were too many stories in terms of the whole season. There were too many stories that took too long to get anywhere. I'm talking about Jimmy, Carter, the Terrell Higgins story. They all took way too much time to get to either a good payoff, a bad payoff, or just a where's it been payoff. But at least they were payoffs, but they just sort of strung it along. The Walker Lloyd drama I thought was way overcooked. I did not like it. The Jamie and Garrett relationship, it started off good, but then they sat around doing nothing. And I thought it was a waste of some really good characters. It really was. And the show would be so much stronger if it just took the time and if they focused on specific characters each episode. I mean, you don't have to have, the show doesn't have to have every character that they've written into the show do something every single episode, but you should have your stories lined out so that every episode feels like we're moving some of these stories along instead of just sidelining certain characters. I don't understand why they spent so much time sidelining characters that are really good. Rainwater, Mo, those are good characters. Jimmy's character being sidelined for so long, his payoff was good. Like I said, I liked his arc, but it took so long. Casey's this last two episodes just sidelined his character with this stupid vision shit. What? It just sucked. Jackie and Rainwater's alignment. Jackie's character in general, she only kind of came in a few times in the show. She said fuck and walked off. Okay. It's like an older version of Beth, just sort of walked in. It's like Beth in 50 years, Beth. That's what you're going to look like. So, I don't know. I really thought that there was too much stuff that they just wasted on. Like, some of these characters had good scenes, and they had some good moments, but it wasn't enough to string along. It wasn't like it was hit after hit after hit or moving forward information. No. Some of it was just, dragging their feet, treading water. And I said this before, they did so much untying of the shoes after they tightened them up tight. All the Duttons surviving, Beth getting kicked off the ranch, Beth's suicide mission, which started off strong and ended weak, Summer getting sentenced. It's like the writers are afraid to really change the landscape. They're so afraid to go down a permanent path that they're avoiding it by just literally turning the knob the other direction just minutes later. Literally just a few minutes later, it's all gone. It's all undone. So I think that's probably the biggest complaint that I have so far is there's just a lot of wasting time and then not following through. There were some things that I did like though. Like I said before, I liked Jimmy's arc. I liked the addition of Carter, and I liked the addition of Summer too. Like I said before, I didn't think I would like Summer's character, but actually I ended up liking her, even though she got off completely scot-free and it was a waste of time. But I just feel like they have good characters like Jimmy and Teeter, Casey, John. These are strong characters, but I feel like they don't know what to do with them. I don't know. They don't have enough material to carry all of these characters forward. So they sideline certain characters. You have Rainwater and Mo doing nothing. You have Jackie Ellis. Ellis is a decent character. Can we show something with him? The sheriff who got killed. Oh, apparently he has a gambling problem. Apparently he's an alcoholic too. Cool. That would have been nice to see. Just a little bit of context to add meat to the bone when he gets killed. It'd be like, oh man, that guy. Okay. Or, oh yeah, fuck that guy. One way or the other would have been something. So I just feel like there are some good. There are things about the show that I liked. I love the visuals. The cinematography is some of the best in terms of just, especially just, streaming shows and stuff like that. It's really shot well. I think they do a great job of using cameras and angles and using the setting and the backdrop that they're in. I think the score is really strong too. The music is pretty emotional, and I just feel like the writing and the characters don't necessarily meet the expectation of the score a lot of the times, but it's still a really good score. The scene where Casey and Mo and the Indians are driving the horses back to the relay ranch on the reservation. That scene was awesome. I loved that scene. I thought it was shot well. The strength of the horses, the way they were just working to get them back. I thought it was great. I thought it was really great. How about maybe one or two less montages of the exact same fucking shit with the cowboys? I mean, we've seen the same thing over and over. I was just getting tired of it. Change it up a little bit, something, but they just, again, it was more, it's like, to me, looking back, that was just filler to sort of fill in the show to make it longer instead of having to get into the fucking writer's room and write some good shit. Put these characters in peril. Why was Carter just sitting around the entire show doing nothing for like 3 or 4 episodes? Put his ass in trouble. See him get himself in trouble. See him get the ranch in trouble, or to get some cattle, helping them, and then like cattle get away or something, instead of Walker and Lloyd mean mugging each other and doing stupid like high school fight bullshit. Get right to the nitty gritty. Why couldn't they just have the fight right off the gate? Boom, he stabs them. Boom, they get tossed into the pen and they're forced to fight, and Rip breaks his hand. I mean, because that scene was pretty strong. I liked it. It was tough. I was cool with it, but it just took forever to get there. It took forever for that to metastasize into something that I gave a shit about. It was a waste. It was such a waste of time. And I think that this show really does. It buckles under the weight of the bloated cast, because they don't have the strength to write all of them strong. And I'll use this as an example. Game of Thrones seasons 1 through 4. You would be hard to find a show that writes their characters, a cast that huge, write it so well. Again, they are using George R.R. Martin's books. I understand that. However, he and the writers for the show, even though those two guys, Dan and Dave, are dipshits, the show did such a great job of maintaining so many characters that were very prominent characters in their own right. And they moved them along, and even some characters that would just pass by, that you would just see for just like, they only had like 1 or 2 scenes, period. They were still strong. They had weight. You cared. You wanted to know who they were. They were interesting people. This show does the exact opposite. It has so many characters, and some of them can be really interesting. A lot of them are not. A lot of them are just sort of wallflowers. They're just there for the landscape, and we never learn anything about them. So, I feel like it just starts to weigh the season down. And then not only that, but we focus so much on watching Beth be awesome and cuss somebody out and insult somebody and do some mean shit and stare people down and be uncomfortable and say uncomfortable shit. Really, montages of horses and watching the same shit over and over. Seeing what was the other one I was just thinking of? The Casey shit at the very end is like, the whole episode for him was just him having visions, which gave no context to the show and to his character. It felt like we were just wasting our time. How many times did we have to see Carter just sort of in the barn in the morning or standing in the background doing absolutely nothing? How many times do we have to see Jamie just being a whimpering wet rag walking around doing nothing? And why focus all your attention on them? Like if they're not, if you want to make them better characters, you want to make them prominent characters, you got to give them more shit to work with. You got to give them more actions to complete, and you got to give them more things to fucking fail at. They have to fail with their own decisions. They have to make mistakes and fail so that they can get better or improve or become more villainous and become more dangerous and become more unpredictable. Not just rinse and repeat, watch them do the same shit. John, he didn't really do anything this season. I mean, he had a couple of scenes, and whenever he's on screen, it's like, hey, there's Kevin Costner. Let's see what he's got to say. He's got some lines that he's very short, and I get it, but boy, I just feel like they really did a poor job of moving the Yellowstone and all of their characters across, all of it, moving them forward in any sort of meaningful, impactful way. If you think about the season as a whole, what did we really accomplish? We accomplished the fact that the Duttons are bulletproof. They won't die, the ones that are left, and that they know who killed him or tried to kill them. They know that he's still in prison, so he's still alive. Let's see, Tate, who killed a man, that sort of had one episode of him who was struggling with it, which he should have. That just sort of moved along. That was done and over with. And then John bid for governor. Lloyd and Walker had a love triangle and with Laramie, and that's it. That's really it. Beth went to work for Market Equities for a couple of days, and then that was that. So I want to say that, and I've said this before, do shows respect your time? I think this show respects some of my time, but it absolutely does not respect all of my time. And I think I would recommend, if someone were to ask me, hey, is this show worth watching? I would generally say, I would ask them, it wouldn't be a show where I'd be like, oh yeah, you got to watch this. It's a good show. I would seriously have to ask some questions like, what kind of show do you like? And because what people's tastes are you can tell what they'll tolerate in terms of quality, in terms of writing. And this is a popular show. Let's not get it twisted. I mean, at my work, there's a lot of people are watching this show. A lot of people, have you seen it? Have you watched it? So it's kind of on a water cooler show. It's at that level. And I can tell you, I'm typically the one who's like, who has more negative to say about the episodes. Some of my coworkers, they'll say, oh, did you see this? You checked that out? Wasn't that cool? And I'm like, not really. I thought it was dumb. So, I understand that I can be, I may be coming off like I'm just here to point out all the bad and whatever. I'm really not, man. I really want this show to be better. And I think it has some bones. There's some strong bones and a foundation that could really elevate this show to be what it wants to be. But this is season 4 and they still haven't hit it yet. I just think this is as good as it's going to get. And I think that it's mediocre. So if someone were to ask me, I'm like, well, it's a decent show. It's mediocre. If you like, if it's just something you want to kill your time with, sure, check it out. Don't get mad if you don't like it. Let me see here. Where was I? I think that's it. Yeah. I think I covered all my points there. So, if you liked it, I'm glad if you did. I'm glad if you like the show and if you think what I'm saying is unfair or whatever. I get it, and that's okay. You know, I would say, I think next season, if they were to greenlight another season, and I know there's the prequel, I've heard some things about the prequel that I might want to check out, but I don't know. I really don't know. This was a good experience for me reviewing this show, in terms of how much time I have on my hands. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't know if season 2 were to be announced, I don't know if I would want to review the whole thing like this again, because it feels like a lot of effort for not as much payoff. Not for the channel, because I enjoy doing it, and that's probably the most that I can say, is I enjoyed reviewing this show more than I actually enjoyed watching it. So I think that's probably the best way that I could verbalize how I feel about the show. And on that note, I'm going to wrap it up. It's now getting late and I got to go to work tomorrow. So if you like the channel, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed and you would like to, please click the button and check out some of my other videos. If you think somebody else might like this video, go ahead and share it with your friends. Other than that, I'm going to let you go. You have a good night, and I will talk to you later. Bye.